Thank you so much, Sreekumar. And also thanks to Dr. Soumya because I think her ideas have actually given a nice segue to the theme that I was asked to speak on, which is student engagement and need for effective pedagogical approaches to school education. My area of expertise is teacher education, school education, and language and literacy education and curriculum and pedagogy. Um, so just last week, on the 14th of December, I concluded Kathavana, which is the 12th iteration of our university's annual bilingual children's literature festival. And in the festival, I met a publisher who shared a small anecdote with me, which I thought would be useful to share here. So one of these days, a child and his father visited the publication and book house and explored different books that were there, and they thoroughly enjoyed being there, bought a few books, and left. Now, after a few days, they returned to the bookshop, and the father categorically told the publisher that, it was the child who had dragged him there. Now, the more interesting part of this anecdote was the child said, Papa, I want to go to that place again, that book museum. Now, up until this comment, I was quite happily listening to how the parent had made an effort to bring the child to the bookshop in the first place, how the child enjoyed being around books, and then also came back once more. Now, the punchline of the anecdote hit me, I am supposing like many of you, only at the end when the publisher highlighted how she was aghast on listening to the bookshop being called a book museum. How a child in today's world considers books to be artifacts to be collected and exhibited in a museum, to be looked at by others, and not as something that is, part and parcel of your life, held in hands, read night and day, or used for different mundane purposes around the home. So, listening to this, this sharing, I was just wondering, how did we come to this situation? When and how did we enter this age of books being a part of the museum? My understanding, like the speakers before me have also shared, is that the present age of information has a lot to contribute to this situation. With mobile phones, laptops, iPads, television, social media available to us just a finger click away, we have certainly shifted our focus from reading books, newspapers, magazines, etc., as a source of information and knowledge, to these gadgets and apps as our immediate rescue for anything that we may need. You want to look for a meaning of a word, you want to check upon a recipe, read about something interesting for pleasure or even for information, you want to explore news, anything or everything is available digitally. Really long gone are my mother's days when she would, cut out newspaper clippings sharing an interesting recipe. Even she has now learned to become a YouTube channel follower and she forwards me recipes from these on my WhatsApp. So, of course, I'm not arguing for staying strong with the old age methods only. One really needs to learn and adapt with the changing world and age. We need to recognize that we are working with digital natives, children who are born in an age when these materials and ways of gaining information are part of their daily life. As an example of this, in a study that I was informally helping with, we noticed that all the secondary school students who were interviewed, they access news through digital mediums such as Microsoft Bing or Google Feed, and not really by reading the newspapers. But at the same time, I think one needs to be conscious of what this change entails in terms of benefits and struggles and act accordingly. The information age is here to stay. There's no denying that. But what does it mean in terms of our response to the changing world around us? More specifically, our attention span and how we can navigate the same is the important discussion. Now, as we already know, one's attention span is the amount of concentrated time one spends on a task without getting distracted. Or, as Rogers would say, it is the degree to which a child demonstrates sustained focus on given tasks and activities. Now, in this information age or digital age, what do we do as teachers, principals, policymakers, and educators to support students in the same? How do we engage students effectively so that they remain focused and on task for the expected duration? Here it is very essential to know that children are usually able to maintain a longer attention span when performing tasks that match their abilities and interests. Even if young children do have less attention span, I agree. But at the same time, when something matches their abilities and interests, they do show longer attention spans. So I've already introduced one of the most important pedagogical strategies or skills to focus on, which is reading. Effective reading that is not merely decoding, but leads to comprehension and in-depth engagement with the text is not only an important language skill, but is most central to learning across the curriculum as well. Several students, in schools, they struggle in other subjects such as math, science, social science, not because they're not capable in it, but because they can't read and comprehend what the text or question is trying to ask of them. This frustrates them. It makes them lose their interest, and in turn makes them lose their attention and focus. Now, research has also, kind of shown us that it is print reading and not digital reading that increases comprehension skills by 6 to 8 times. And this is especially true for younger children who are still in the process of developing their language skills and are still learning to self-regulate. They don't know yet, how to manage. As rightly said, we as adults probably can self-regulate. We can say, okay, now I really need to, sit down and make this presentation. Young children can't. So they're still in that process. But then when they are exposed to print reading, they develop these skills because reading aloud stories to them or encouraging them to read from books on their own or explore children's literature pushes them to sit down and focus as they look at the pictures in a picture book, as they listen to the story being read aloud, or as they try to follow the ideas and comprehend the storyline which is being shared with them. I can say something similar, about writing as well, but perhaps we can talk about that, a little later in the discussion. Because from language skills now, I want to move on to another pedagogical strategy. And here I would say another important strategy for effective student engagement is to not overstimulate children in one particular way. As educators, as teachers, we tend to bring in different materials to our classrooms, flashy materials, colorful prints all around, and now even digital educational apps and games and whatnot. As Soumya also rightly said, Kahoot, Padlet, Desmos, all these different educational apps are something that we have brought to our classrooms. Now, in no way I'm against the use of these materials. I am a teacher of this digital age. I do teach children who are very adept at these materials, and why not use them? But and they're of course very useful in helping students comprehend and learn better. But what I'm trying to emphasize here is that we should exercise educational judgment in terms of balancing this external stimulus. This exposure should not always be, but unfortunately is, but should not always be audio visual that bombards only particular senses of seeing and hearing of children. It is essential that children are given the opportunity to stimulate their sense of touch, smell, and taste as well. Can we take them for trips which speak to these particular senses, such as a visit to a museum, a library with old books, they really smell different, an art gallery, a restaurant's kitchen? Can we do particular activities, such as painting, pottery, tinkering with materials, building a kitchen garden that engages them physically, calling upon all the senses? Gamification definitely is a great way to engage children. But who said only digital games are the answers? Can we bring in toys or even create toys with children? Physical games such as jump rope, tapu, cognitive games such as, puzzles, crosswords.
Yes,
Can
Sonika,
we?
would you like to
Yeah,
just
I'll
conclude?
just
We'll
conclude.
discuss in detail
Sure, sure.
once we come. Yeah.
Just 2 more minutes.
Yes, yes.
Uh, can we focus, not only on cognitive engagement through academic subjects, but also physical and socio-emotional engagement through visual and performing arts and sports education? Uh, I'll actually just discuss the third and the last strategy that I want to talk about, which needs to be strongly brought to school education, which is the practice of mindfulness in our classrooms. With so much going on in a child's life, mind you, they're as busy and concerned with their lives as us. It is important to teach them how to take a pause and just be present in the here and now. One can start the day with circle time on a regular basis that emphasizes upon everyone coming together and sharing a moment of silence, attention, and togetherness. After a rigorous class, such as sports or math or any class, students can be encouraged to sit in silence and focus on breathing for a minute before transitioning into the next class. Mindfulness need not always be, sitting in silence. It is a practice where one is truly attentive to the task at hand, almost like the psychological state of being in flow. So the idea is that we need to build a culture of mindfulness at home and school and encourage children to engage in the same through daily, mundane, yet important tasks. So I think to conclude, in a world filled with digital overstimulation and attempts to fill 24 hours of a day with everything that needs at least 48 hours, even for young children, we don't really need to teach children how to use a phone, iPad, and laptop. Even my 1 year old niece knows how to swipe photos on a phone. No surprise there. Children have always been smarter than adults, just a little less experienced. What we do need to teach children is, how to stay strong with some of the useful, time-tested ways of living as well, while they continue growing with this ever-changing world. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to share. Thank you.